Following program are those of the speakers and the host and do not necessarily reflect those of Yoakley Scott Corporation and your sports network.
Yeah, I've been closer to Jesus before, so can you help me out? Oh, can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? But can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? Or can you help me out? Can you help me out? I've been scared to look in my soul. I've been afraid I would follow the road. Yeah, afraid of the things I've been told.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into a Thursday episode of Running Point on ysnlive.com, brought to you by our good friends up in that corner, Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. We want to thank them, as always, for their sponsorship of not this show, but everything that YSN does. They've been with us for a while, and we can't thank Greenwood enough. They go the extra mile for you. We try to do the same on this show and at YSN. Got a good show for you today. Got some more basketball coaches pre-recorded. I think this is the last round of coaches that have been in the can that we're going to play. We're trying to get as many of these preseason interviews played as possible. Ty Bartell did a wonderful job in the preseason, getting so many coaches. I think this is the last round of them. So we have Roy Simbach from Newton Falls going to be played. We have Josh Scott from Heartland Christian going to be played. Craig Hannon from Girard as well. It's going to be a fun day of just kind of hearing from these coaches, hearing what they think from their team. Most of them are 1 or 2 games into the season, so still plenty of time to preview what the outlook of the teams are. Heartland has been off to a really good start. On Tuesday, they got the thrilling win over Jackson Milton. We saw Girard get a back-and-forth tug-of-war victory over Campbell Memorial. So it's going to be a fun night. Obviously, Newton Falls and Coach Simbach, they had a tough one against Howland where they were pretty competitive against the undefeated Tigers as well. So all 3 coaches of 3 programs that have high expectations for the season. I'm going to we're going to hear from all of them. Ty Bartell got a chance to talk to them, but we're going to hear from all of them today. But first, as always, we are going to start with a recap of the night before. Wednesday was a softer night than most. Most Wednesdays you don't have too many finals come across the scoreboard, but we still had some hits you. And we're going to start with Heartland Christian. They got the win over Cheney, 38-32. The Lions, they're prideful about another win. It's a good one over Cheney. Maria Fire had a handful of blocks in Mooney's win over Warren Harding, 43-22. Mooney's just kind of, I like what Mooney's putting together right now. Obviously, they're trying to replace a couple of really key players from last year. There have been some games where you can tell they're trying to put players in new situations. But then there are games like last night where Warren Harding comes in. They're trying to rebuild. They have a lot of talent coming into their program. But Mooney was able to kind of hold them down, especially in the interior defense. Maria Fire did such a good job in the paint with her blocks. I think she totaled with 4 on the night. 4 total blocks. Mooney had a couple of more as well. 43-22, they get the win. And they've been leaning on Olivia Rouser for offense. She's a really good scorer. But once they kind of find a flow and find more and more people that can score, I think this Mooney team can actually get pretty dangerous when you get into the Division III tournament. Obviously, their schedule is going to be much more heavy than most of the Division III schedules you see. So I think Mooney can really make some noise when you get to the end of the road. Canfield, talk about making noise. They continue to impress. They are 3-0 on the season. They beat up Ursuline last night, 56-18. I was on the call for this game, so I can kind of take a little bit of time and speak about it. And Canfield hasn't been consistently in action yet because they had to play one game and they had, I think, 4 or 5 days off, and they played another one, and they had to wait until last night to play Ursuline. So they haven't found a really like a consistent groove, but you can't tell from the way they're playing. Last night, their defense was really locked down. They came in with a great defensive game plan. It was pretty much be on the ball at all times, make sure Lily Scott doesn't have room to dribble or find any passing lanes. And then when Elena Smith gets the ball, make her finishes as tough as possible. And that's what they did. They shut down Elena Smith. They didn't give Lily Scott much room as a point guard to facilitate like she likes to do. They basically said if Ursuline is going to beat us, it's going to be someone outside of those two that really shine. And unfortunately, right now, Ursuline's just not in a position to have someone else on that roster really step up and carry the weight against a good team like Canfield. I think they'll get there. They have a couple of pieces last night that I was pretty impressed with. Like I can see, okay, they can get there. They can get there. They have the fundamentals and they have the building blocks to be a player that can take some stuff on their shoulder when teams try to shut down Lily Scott and Elena Smith. Especially Chelsea Johnson really impressed. She had 6 points. She had a couple of really nice finishes at the hoop. Really good basket cuts. I think once they get a little bit more basketball IQ and they start to really focus and play together and not get frustrated when Lily Scott and Elena Smith get shut down, because that's what it felt like. It felt like, okay, you're going to shut down one of our best players, and now we're going to kind of lock down because we don't know what to do when that happens. I think sometimes when you have a lot of talent on the team from 1 or 2 players, that can happen if a defense starts to slow those two down. Then the whole team kind of panics because they feel like if this defense can slow them down, what are they going to do to us? That kind of thing. I think once Ursuline gets past that, and they will, because Bernard Scott is a incredible basketball coach, they'll get past that. They have a couple of players with some really good building blocks that can really be good basketball players. And Trinity Lamb, actually, especially her defense, she's a good addition to the team coming off the volleyball team. They were able to bring her in this year. I was impressed with that. On Canfield's side, it's the same thing that I saw when they played West Branch. They are deadly from the perimeter. They are not afraid to shoot. McElroy had 3 threes on the night. Kate Solly had a couple as well. You saw Treveri hit a couple threes. You saw Koenig hit 2. They're just a team that loves to shoot from the perimeter, and when that is working, then they're going to roll on all cylinders. Their defense played exceptionally well. I would have liked to see them score a little bit more in like the straight up pass the ball into the post. But when you look at their team, they don't have a lot of straight up post players. So I kind of get it. They have a lot of guards. So they're going to try to drive as much as possible. Against Ursuline, it was tough. They have a lot of good interior defenders that make it tough to finish at the rim. I think that's why Canfield's most of their offense came from mid-range jumpers and threes, because it's hard to finish down there against Elena Smith and Trinity Lamb and some of those players for Ursuline. So that's one thing. I mean, if I'm not a nitpick, it's still early. It's 3 games into the season. I think I would love to see Canfield get a few more points in the paint, because obviously those are higher percentage shots than the threes. The old saying in basketball, you live and die by the 3, because there's gonna eventually be a night where those shots aren't going in. So what are you gonna do when that happens? But so far hasn't happened to Canfield. They have shot really well so far this season. They have another big test on Saturday night against Stowe. Stowe is a team that has been a thorn in Canfield's side over the years. Obviously, a really good team out of Division One. This is Canfield. I think this is Canfield's best year to make a tournament run, because we've talked about it before with volleyball and when the division breakdowns came out for girls sports, that Canfield had been waiting to go down to Division 2 for a while, because they've been one of the smallest Division 1 teams in the state. In fact, I think they were the smallest Division 1 team in the state in girls sports. And now they're Division 2, but they're still, because this season they still have the schedule they've committed to. They still play a really tough, like, Division 1 loaded schedule that is built to get them ready for a Division 1 tournament run. So I think that's really going to help them and pay dividends this year in the Division 2 tournament. I mean, they're going to be really ready. I mean, they're not going to see a team like Stowe in the Division 2 district. That's for sure. Stowe brings a lot of good basketball. They're going to come to Canfield on Saturday. Can't wait for that one. Richie Giuliano will be on the call at 7. It's going to be a fun one. If you got time, if you want to go down to Canfield, check that one out. It could be a full day of basketball, because you got games starting as early as noon. In fact, I think you have games even starting earlier than that, but then you have games starting as late as 7. So if you're a basketball junkie, which no shame at all from our here at YSN. I mean, if you're a junkie, you're a junkie for basketball. You can go to, they're all pretty close together. I mean, you think about it, you go to Poland for the United Way Classic, check all those games out, then you can go and catch Canfield versus Stowe after. That would be a full day of basketball, and it probably wouldn't cost you that much because you're paying one price to get into the United Way Classic, and then you're paying one price for the Canfield game. So plenty of opportunities on Saturday for sure to see a lot of really good basketball matchups. We go into more scores. West Branch is struggling right now. Obviously, we all know about Sophia Gregory and that situation. She's hurt. They're trying to find a rhythm without her. Obviously, it's hard when you have a player that is that good. You came into the season expecting her to be someone that carries a lot of the burden. And 41-27 Alliance gets their first win over West Branch since I believe 2009 was the last time that Alliance got the better of West Branch. So obviously, I don't think it's panic time yet for the Warriors because obviously when you're in a situation like this, it's a tough place to be in. I think what you got to do if you're a Warriors fan, if you're part of the Warriors team, is stay the course, realize that you're coached by a legend that will figure things out and put players in the best chance to succeed. And he'll get these players confident in their own abilities. They have a lot of athletes on this team that they are going to be fine. Olivia Showalter, Michaelin Fitz, Chloe Dennison, Egley. They have a lot of really good basketball players, really good athletes. They'll be okay. They'll be okay. They just have to they have to find their own identity now. Their identity has been affected because their identity was really wrapped up in what Sophia Gregory could do, not just scoring, but the attention that she demanded from other teams' defenses. She molded the identity of that team, and now without her for the foreseeable future, hopefully not the whole season, but for the foreseeable future, without her on the floor, they have to find a new identity. That's going to take some time. They're going to take some lumps, but the wonderful thing about basketball is it doesn't matter because you get into the tournament. So if you're playing your best basketball in February, these couple of lumps and these tough times in December and January don't really matter. West Branch, they're just gonna have to face the reality that they have to adjust, they have to pivot, and they have really good people up top with Walter Shields. They have really good leaders on that team, vocal leaders that know how to win. So I think West Branch is going to be okay, but they're not going to look like the West Branch that you expected coming into the season for at least a foreseeable future. So you got to just keep on keeping on, trust the process. If you're the Warriors, I think um, I think if you do that, you'll be fine. Speaking of Warriors, there's another Warriors team, a boys team actually, Edgewood. Remember that Cuyahoga Valley Conference plays boys on Monday, Wednesday, girls on Tuesday, Friday for the first half of the season. So Edgewood boys were in action last night, and they had a thrilling victory over Harvey, 73-72. Edgewood boys and girls basketball are a combined 9-0 so far on the season. Both programs are coming in hot. 4-0 now for the boys, 5-0 for the girls, and it's a good day to be a Warrior in Edgewood, that's for sure. By the way, speaking of Edgewood basketball, just posted right before the show. You can head over to ysnlive.com. If you missed the interview on Tuesday with Edgewood girls basketball player Casey Kanicki and the newest member of the 1,000 Point Club, head over to ysnlive.com. Check out that interview brought to you by iSynergy. What a great conversation with Casey Kanicki, and a great opportunity to kind of introduce ourselves more and more to the Edgewood athletics program. We are so proud that they are part of our family. They signed on during football season. We will continue more and more to get more Edgewood love and limelight as the season goes on. And if they continue this, we'll have to, because they're going to be one of the best programs in the area if they continue to be undefeated. Girls wise, they're one of the few remaining. I mean, there are still remaining undefeated teams, but there aren't too many now. I mean, girls teams are starting to drop a little bit as they get into 5-6 games. So Edgewood girls are still 5-0. They're still undefeated. They will play again on Friday. Tough game against Hawken, who just beat Orange by 3 earlier in the week. So Edgewood girls back in action on Friday. The boys got the 73-72 victory over Harvey last night. I get Harvey and Hawken mixed up. I got to get used to this Cuyahoga Valley conference now that we're covering it. Speaking of getting used to conferences, I want to take the time to also say this. If you haven't seen it yet, go over to ysnlive.com And you can check out not just our live scoreboard every night, but now brought to you this basketball season for the first time ever. You can go to ysnlive.com. You can go to the menu tab on the screen up here where you get high schools and scores. Right below scores, you can hit the tab called standings. And on this tab, you can find all the conference standings of all the teams in the YSN family, including that Cuyahoga Valley Conference with Edgewood. It's a great tool to have if you want to keep up on where your team sits in the conference. All the conferences are updated there daily by our wonderful team. So make sure to go check that out. We do not just have live scores. We have live updated standings in all of our conferences as well, I should say. So check that out. Going to be a fun time. Without further ado, I want to get to some of these basketball coaches. I want to get to them in time. So I'm going to start with Josh Scott, I think of Heartland. I think I put these in the right order. I think Josh Scott from Heartland is going to be up first. He had the chance to talk with Ty Bartell earlier. Let's hear what Josh Scott had to say from Heartland Christian Basketball on Running Point, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown.
Ty Bartell in with another edition of Coach's Corner. This time we go into Columbiana County, home of the Heartland Christian Lions, with Josh Scott, the head coach of the boys basketball team over there. Coach Scott, how are we doing?
Doing fantastic. How about you?
Oh, not doing too bad myself. I'm sure you're gearing up for the season. I'm getting excited for the season as each day passes by. I'm excited to talk about this team because you guys seem to have great numbers throughout the years, too. It always seems to be such a basketball-heavy township, I should say, or a basketball-heavy school, I should say, where a lot of the kids flood to these sports, and they love it, and it seems like you have great numbers. Looking at it, how are the practices looking right now? What's standing out to you, and what are you seeing that's coming from that?
Well, the numbers are true again this year. We've got 22 kids, 9 through 12, and two different junior high boys teams, which is a little bit uncommon, it seems like, anymore in the junior high era right now. But so we're very fortunate and blessed in that way that we have the numbers and we have kids that are interested in playing, and in turn, it makes the practices how they have been pretty competitive. Every single day they're working hard, knowing that they have to earn their spots, and that's really just a big portion of the success that we've had over the last several years. Just having that competition and having to bring it every day.
Looking at last year going into this year, the loss of Jonathan Berdovich is no doubt going to be felt. With a loss like a senior like that, is it more felt on the court or off the court when you lose such a high impact senior in character like Jonathan Berdovich?
Well, I would say it's definitely both, because he was a kid that wanted to work outside of practice, and then obviously good student, good role model. That whole group was, but just the impact that he had, Jonathan did. It's hard to duplicate, but I will say that we do have several kids now that are trying to pick up where he left off, and he did leave a lasting mark on our program for that reason. And it's really, it's really neat to see. It's a really unique situation here where we feel like we can maybe continue some of those things that he had done, and hopefully have some success with that too.
No doubt. Like you said, this has been in a program that's been successful too. And I mean, with good coaching up front, good players and good athletes that have come through it. How do you kind of maintain that success life after Jonathan Berdovich? Because like you said, you've had success prior to. So what does that blueprint kind of look like to maintain success?
Yeah, it just goes back to hard work. There's nothing fancy about the success that we've had. There's no secret. Obviously, having some skill, having him with the skill level that he did, that changes things and how you coach and what you do. And we weren't afraid to go into games thinking, hey, we can outscore this team, so defense isn't as vital, which is crazy for me to say, because now I'm really getting back into my roots as a coach, and trying to hang our hats on the defensive end, knowing that, hey, points may come at a little bit lesser of a clip right now, even though we still play fast and we still do a lot of the same things that we were doing. But, we got to make sure that we can get stops on the defensive end and just become special on that side, because we don't have a whole lot of size. That's just, when I first got here, we had Joey D'Onofrio and Stephen Baker and Ronnie Matthews and Noah Pennington and all these guys that were 6'3" plus. And now we're just this, smaller team across the board, which is okay, because it allows us to play fast and really work on the defensive end, but we can't make a whole lot of mistakes on that end. So we're really working hard there.
Let's get a chance to meet that team a little bit more in depth. Who are some of the returning faces and some newer faces that the Heartland community has to get used to?
Sure. So Luke Reynolds is our returning starter. So he's a 3-year letterman, and he'll be a 4-year letterman this year, and averaged, I believe, I just saw it the other day for some reason. I don't know why. I usually don't know the stats, but he was like 9-3 kid, 9 points, 3 rebounds. And then Drew Walker is another senior that had started a game or two last year and was normally the first guy off our bench. So he's a familiar face, both seniors. Our third senior is incoming Jake Kling. He was a JV guy last year, but has played really well, worked really hard this offseason, and has been waiting. Some of these kids that I'm going to mention, they're all in the same boat. They've been waiting in the wings here to get their opportunity because they've had guys. We've graduated 16 guys in the last 3 years, so they've just had to kind of wait their turn. And then we have 2 other returning lettermen in junior Jake Walker, who's our point guard, and then junior Will Morgan. And so those two have played some big minutes at times, enough to letter and be part of that. And then we have a whole group of new faces coming in. We've got so going down the list, I'm looking at my roster right now. The 2 new incoming faces are Tyler Rarick, who's a junior, and Shabi Royo, who is a kid from Spain that had come in and wanted to be. We had a family that was looking to host there, and then so he'll be looking to get a little bit of time. Seth Walker, who's a sophomore, coming in and looking to get lots of time. Johnny Myers, a sophomore. I mean, the list goes on. Isaiah Matthews is a freshman. Caden Streetfler, junior. All these different guys. We've got a whole group of guys that are all looking for time right now. And Drew Galt too. Cheney's quarterback. He's coming in. I just got recently got to have him back, so there's that name too. So
that's awesome too. Just to have that kind of cast of names too that are in there, and these are names too. The Walkers we know very well from baseball as well. Like one thing about these athletes here at Heartland Christian that I've been really impressed with, like the wins in the tournament in basketball, they carried that right over into baseball. A lot of those kind of similar faces. Yeah. Are you a firm believer of success breeds success? And I mean, it's got to be fun right now with the high level of intensity athletes that you guys have right there that are going out there doing a lot of first and really carrying the flagship of the Lions and carrying it proud.
Yeah, my buddy Coach Johnson, right up the street at Columbiana, he calls us the law firm, the Walker Morgan Law Firm.
I love it.
Yeah, so we always get a crack out of that. But the kids are buying in, and we actually I use, so when I was coaching at Sebring years ago, and even Western Reserve with the girls even before that, McDonald was always a school that I've always looked at, like, why can't let's try to be like them, where they've had success across the board. And I use them. These kids are probably too young to remember, some of those days where they were just every single sport. I mean, they're still good now. Don't get me wrong, but they had years there where it was like, it didn't matter what sport you were playing. You knew that they were going to be one of the best teams around. And for us, I mean, that's, why can't we have success at everything that we're doing? But, with the right coaching and the kids that we have in that school, we should be able to, be competitive.
And Coach, you talk about maintaining that level of success. I've talked with many coaches, and a lot of them say it's about playing to your strengths. You obviously can't draw up the same plays when you have a bunch of guys that are 6'3" as opposed to now. But looking at it, teams with different sets of strengths can always make deep runs, and they find ways to win. Looking at what you got right now in your practices and with this team, what are going to be your strengths going into this season?
So, it's funny because coming into this summer, I felt like depth was going to be probably our biggest problem, especially with as much inexperience as we have. Just there's not a whole lot of experience at the varsity level overall, but it has turned into so far we've had 3 scrimmages already. It's turned into where, man, I'm going to have some playing time issues with trying to get players X, Y, and Z in, and trying to get some sort of rotation figured out, which is a good thing. So I think it allows us to do more. It allows us, again, it goes back to the competition that I talked about at the beginning, but it also just allows us to play faster, allows us to play harder, because maybe the guys only have to be in for a couple minutes at a time. I think that's going to be a highlight of this team. and I never would have dreamt that with losing all those guys last year and then coming into this summer. So that part was really unique and interesting.
Coach, let's just real quickly go over this schedule right now, because I know you guys being independent too kind of allows you the flexibility to schedule who you want. So what's some highlights on the schedule you're excited for these boys to be tested?
Well, yeah, let's look at that, because we've had it's interesting because we've decided to play up. So when I first got here, it was kind of, some of the teams that we were playing, the coaches I would talk to, well, that win doesn't count because that team's not, Kingsway Christian's not OHSAA, or that team is, this team's that. So, we're going to Salem. We have D3 Valley Christian twice. We have Badger, who just got, Duncan Moy from Warren Harding. I mean, they're going to be really good. We've got them twice. We're playing them up at the well, I call it the Q or Rocket Mortgage, whatever it is now. But so we have them. Lisbon, we got Lisbon potentially twice with their tournament, and then playing them. Crestview's on Newton Falls on the road, United, Minerva twice. So when you're looking down this schedule, and there's several others there too, but I'm hoping that people look at this and say, hey, they're not afraid to play anybody. And part of it is I have to schedule 22 games too. So, it is more difficult to try and find games when you're independent. But, if we're that team that is hovering around below or just above 500 into the tournament and nobody wants to play us, I feel like that's still an exciting season. I've never really been part of that kind of team, but it was like, hey, let's see what happens. And, I don't know how many games we're going to win this year at all. I could never tell you. No clue, but, to hopefully have that preparation going into the tournament, that's kind of our hope. Because that's really all we have to play for. We're not, no league or whatever. So
work with what you got and roll the dice, right, Coach? That's
Sure.
the goal for every season. Who's going to be helping you on your staff this season, lead this group of boys, and who are some other big names in this program you'd like to give a shout out to?
Yeah, so I mean, it's still, my dad is still helping out. Pops, they call him.
Love to see it.
Yeah, my dad's back, and Coach Z Zamuda, he's back as our JV coach again. And then Coach Lib, giving a shout out to him. He took the girls program over this year for us, and he's still deciding to come around as much as he can for the boys too. And he was in kind of that freshman role last year, so he's sticking around and being some eyes and ears. And then we've got Ronnie Matthews, who had played for us my first year here. He and Fernando Meyer are helping at the junior high, but Ronnie's kind of been a jack of all trades, just helping out wherever he can and coming to lots of practices and going to sit the bench with us too. And so, I'm really, really fortunate with where our staff is right now. We're in a really great spot for these kids.
How important is it to have consistency at that kind of level with the staff year in and year out, to also expect consistency of success year in and year out?
Yeah, I don't know how many times I've already mentioned in practices about what our culture is, and part of it is like the newer faces, and there's certain things, as simple as throwing a ball into the rack, into our ball bat, the ball rack that we have, you can kind of throw it in there, and missing and all that. And it's like, no, we don't do that. We don't leave basketballs laying around. We don't walk from place to place. And just having that culture where all the coaches already know what to expect as well, is gigantic. And I think that, when I send my scrimmages out to some friends that watch us and kind of critique me, but I think that's a really big thing with coaching, is having some people that will give you some insight. That was one thing that they've talked about, is how differently our kids walk onto the floor from when they first started watching some of our games, even from a confidence standpoint and knowing where to be and all those things. I think it's just such a smooth transition to go from, game to game, practice to practice.
I'm sure I gotta imagine that it is too, just having that kind of consistency. And it seems like a lot of coaches that have bought into the program as well too. And I mean, when everyone's bought in, it can make the jobs and lives a lot easier. Coach, before I let you go, I want to give you a little bit of shameless self-promotion. Tell the community why they need to get out there, support this boys basketball team this year.
Well, I definitely appreciate that. And we anytime I get a chance to talk to any of you guys over at YSN, I always like to take advantage of it, because you guys are so incredibly special. I'm going to flip it around for a second, but so special to what we do, and just giving us this platform is incredible. I can't even, none of us can thank you enough. And I speak for so many schools when I say that. But in terms of the Heartland Lions, you're going to get a team that's again playing. We're going to be physical this year, which is new. That's probably the newest feature. I have a lot of kids that are physical, and then we're just going to play really hard, and we're just going to try to compete every single night. That's really our goal, and hopefully that we honor God when we do it, and when people watch us play, hopefully they can see some kids that are really doing it for the right reasons, and that's really my main goal in doing this. But again, hardworking kids, fun to watch, fast paced. This isn't walk it up basketball over here, so I think that it would be fun to watch for sure.
I think you guys are going to be real fun to watch as well. And you can catch some of the Heartland Christian Lions games on ysnlive.com this season, absolutely free once again, thanks in part to our wonderful sponsors. As we gear up for the 2022-23 season, Heartland Christian's ready with one of the best skippers in the area, Josh Scott. We get ready for it, as this has been another edition of Coach's Corner with Ty Bartell.
What a guy, Josh Scott. What an interview with him, Ty Bartell. Once again, doing a great job. We can't wait to have him back on Friday. Well, tomorrow, I should say. Back on the show. Man, Josh Scott, he's one of the real ones. Heartland Christian off to a good start. They were able to beat Jackson Milton on Tuesday night in a really good game. I think the final score, if I'm not off the hand, I think it was 63-59. No, actually, that was Salem Springfield. It was close. It was a 3-point game. Yeah, it was a 3-point game. Jackson Milton had the last shot and didn't make it. So really good start to the season to Heartland Christian. They have a lot to look forward to, and they have that independent schedule that Ty and Josh were talking about that is going to make them so tough to deal with. Also, but there is a double-edged sword because it is tough to schedule an independent. Tim Porter in the comments, we thank him for tuning in, and he reminds everyone that Edgewood boys, they're going to go to Orange on Saturday, so that'll add to more really good basketball on Saturday that we were talking about. So undefeated Edgewood goes to Orange on Saturday. That should be a fun one as well. We are going to take our first break of the day. When we get back, we'll get to more coaches. We still have Craig Hannon and Roy Simbach to get to from Newton Falls and Girard. We'll be right back on Running Point, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown.
21 News delivers the news as it happens, using the latest technology from where it happens.
Live here outside the Mahoney County.
On air, online,
Wednesday afternoon weather update.
Very dangerous.
and on the 21 News social media platforms.
I'm on the road right now.
21 News, the Valley's only locally owned source for trusted news since 1953.
As fine as the eye can see, the finest hardwoods from the finest trees. Made for your home and within your means, Baird Brothers will help fulfill your dreams. Let life and light come shining through in quiet morns. And heavy traffic, too. Find your easy-to-afford fine hardwood floors and doors and more at BairdBrothers.com.
Every customer has a story, and at Greenwood Chevrolet, we are committed to making sure it ends with you in the right vehicle. I get to be part of somebody's adventure, whether it's buying a car for the first time, helping them get approved, or finding the perfect car for their budget. I'm proud that people trust me with their finances. They trust me to take care of them, and they trust me with their story. I'm Tracy, and I'm ready to go the extra mile for you, only at Greenwood Chevrolet.
Welcome back to Running Point on ysnlive.com, brought to you as always by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. Anthony Hartwig with you. We're going to get to another coach's corner and a season preview. This time it is going to be Roy Simbach from Newton Falls joining Ty Bartell. Let's hear what he had to say in this conversation.
Welcome in, everyone, to another edition of Coach's Corner, and a very special guest in this one. Without further ado, it's the legend himself, Roy Sembach from Newton Falls Boys Basketball. Coach, how are we doing today?
Doing very good, thank you.
Coach, you're one of the most well-known coaches throughout the area. I can't tell you how many head coaches shout you out as one of their inspirations throughout the area. So I know you always have the great mindset to bring for these area athletes. What are you seeing in practices right now? What do you like that you've seen? And what are some of the names you want to shout out in sort of a meet the team segment here?
Well, what I like is we have a veteran group this year with a lot of returning players. So practices, we're really ahead of schedule. Then on most years, things get done a lot quicker and we advance a lot quicker on both our offense and defensive schemes. So that really helps when you have a veteran group. We have a lot of guys back from last year. 3 starters, our point guard, Mac Haydett, one of our shooting guard, Alex Pennington, and our post forward guard, whatever, all around, and Jake Klein are 3 starters that are back. And we expect them to be, lead us this year. We have other lettermen and seniors, Dom Greathouse, Carmelo Moore, and Dylan McGregor. And we have underclassman sophomore Landon McGregor, who's also a letter winner. And along with newcomers to the varsity anyhow, Jake Sipka, who's a senior, Jabril Rufai, who's a junior, and Zach Stinson, who's a junior, round out the squad at this point.
When you take all that into account and you see all the team that you've been able to assemble, what would you mark as this team's strengths that you're going to have to play to get some wins this year?
Well, for us in Newton Falls, it always starts with defense first. I mean, I just feel in high school basketball, you have to stop the other team. I think you can stop the other team. Not as easy in the NBA per se, but I think at the high school level, you have to have the mentality that you don't want to give up baskets to the other team. And if we can have that defense first attitude, that gives you a chance in every game, because you can't control every game how you're going to shoot the ball. But you certainly can't control how hard and how well you're going to defend. And if you defend well, it always gives you a chance at the end.
And looking at that, I mean, you guys are going to be playing again in a very tough MVAC grade division side of the conference. What are the things you guys are going to need to check mark to get a piece of that conference crown or be at the tops of that conference?
Well, we just have to execute. We have the experience. And that we have the guys back. We have a good size. We have to just execute our game plan. And in our league, it is very tough. So you have to do that each and every night, beginning with each and every practice. So, our goal every season is to each day get a little bit better. And if our kids buy into that and each day they get a little bit better and they give the effort on game night every night, we have a chance to do some things this year.
What are some of the non-conference games that you guys are excited for? I know you don't have a ton of room because the conference is a bigger one, but I mean, you still have some room to schedule some games. What are some non-conference ones you're excited for these boys to be tested against?
We open up with Ravenna, and Ravenna has not had a great basketball history. But they probably are going to have one of the better teams that they've had this year. So that'll be an exciting opener for us, and just a close by school. So that'll be good. We have Howland coming up, which is always a bigger school challenge. Lakeview, a bigger school challenge. Then we have rivals in Southeast, which we have a doubleheader with the girls. We have Heartland Christian this year. We had a great game with them last year. They had a really nice team. We end the season. The final week we have Niles, which is another bigger school to go against. Another one of our rivals, Wyndham, with the great small school tradition basketball history that they have. So our non-leagues should be exciting with a mix between bigger schools, smaller schools, and close by rivalry schools.
I'm curious, when you're looking at the team for a season, when you're trying to fare a season, when you have that schedule all laid out, what are some of the things that your coaching staff are looking for in practices that kind of determine if a player's getting playing time, if they're getting starting time? What are those little things that you and your other coaching staff look for that determine that?
Well, number one is work ethic. I mean, you cannot play for us unless you're going to give 100% effort every day in practice. It starts with that. We tell our kids, we can't even begin to coach you unless you play hard. So it starts with playing hard. Once our kids buy into that and play as hard as they need to play, then coaching comes in, and we look for the things that any coach would look for: their skill level, how much they're improving every day. Can they help us? What's their role going to be? Is there a little niche they can have to get some playing time? Not everybody can be a star in a basketball team, but can somebody come in and provide shooting? Somebody come in and can provide extra ball handling. Somebody come in and get the ball off the glass. Somebody we can put in on defensive possessions late in the game that we know they can help us get a stop. So those are the type of things we look at, and we got good quality kids that hopefully can do a lot of those things this year.
I ask this question to a lot of coaches, and you end up becoming their answers. So I feel like this
means I'm old.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting asking this to you. When you look at your coaching voice too, and what kind of really helped you establish that, what was some of the best advice you received from maybe a coach or a mentor that kind of helped establish your coaching voice and that you kind of carried with you as a coach throughout all these years?
I played for and coached under legendary Gene Zorn, who was there for 32 years. This is my 36th. We've had two coaches here at Newton Falls in almost 70 years. And as much as he taught me and I learned basketball from him and life from him, such a great person, he also gave me the most important advice of you have to be yourself. Okay, you can't try to imitate somebody else. You have to be yourself and do your thing. And to show how that worked too, when Coach Zorn, like I said, I played for him, I coached under him. He remained one of our biggest fans until the day he passed away. But my very first year as head coach, he never came in the gym other than at the games. And never came in the gym at practice because he didn't want to put any pressure to see, am I doing things his way? Am I doing things the right way, so to speak? And then after that first year, then I got established a little bit. Then he'd pop in the gym at practices and never offered any advice unless I asked him something. And I always really appreciate that from him. And again, it's just great advice. You have study the game, work hard at it, but you have to be yourself. You can't try to be somebody else. You can't say I'm going to be Rick Pitino. I'm going to be Coach K. You've got to study the game and then be yourself. Take bits and pieces from everybody. You can learn from anyone and everyone. And this is my 36th year, and I'm excited to see what I'm going to learn this year. Every single year, you learn something different, and you hope to improve and get a little better at what you do.
Shout out a couple of the big things that you have learned in such a long career as a head coach. Some of the biggest things you've learned from then to now.
Well, I specifically, it's hard to say. One thing I have learned, no matter what, and no matter how many years you've done this job, every single year something will come up that has never came up before. That'll be just crazy, and nothing more than the COVID years. I mean, that was those 2 years, especially the first one, was something else. But you're going to learn something new every single year.
Talk about the challenges that athletes now face today that maybe they haven't in years past in some of the previous teams that you've coached.
Well, that's hard to say. I think kids are really the same, but our times have changed. Social media is something that you have to be careful with and deal with that you never had before. And there's a lot of other things for kids to do. Back when I started, that's what you did. Now they got they have their video games and things like that they want to go to. But basically, kids are the same. When they buy in, they're extremely fun to coach, and it's really not that much different than when I started. It really isn't.
With all the things that you've taught these kids over the years, what's something that some of these kids have taught you?
Well, the kids have taught me, probably my number one weakness is I'm very impatient. And with kids, and sometimes with slow growth and sometimes with mistakes that they make, you have to be patient. And, I'll be working on that until the day I stop coaching. But the kids certainly do. They help me with the patience and just what they taught me coaching basketball. It's you want to compete, you want to try to win every game you play, But the joy of coaching and the why I've done it for so long is the relationships you build with those kids and getting to work with them, seeing them grow and develop, see how they progress in the future as they become adults. And, now I'm getting to the point where I'm, starting to coach some of my players' kids and things like that. And that's the fun part, the great part. It's the journey every season and the relationships that you get to develop with your players.
Head coaches, I know, get all the limelight, but a head coach is only as good as the staff he puts around him. So with saying that, I want to know some of the assistants that you're going to have on this staff this year and some other big names in the program that you'd like to shout out.
Okay, that is extremly true. That I would not be coaching still if I didn't have the great help that I have, because I can't run the program the way I want to run the program without tremendous help. And most every coach says this: I have the best staff around. Well, I really challenge those other ones to say it's better than mine. My top assistant, Mike Mazinetz, he's been with me for around 20 years now. He's just super X and O guy. Really studies the game hard, and he's my right hand man. And he does a lot of the in game coaching for us. Does just a great job. Dan Rankin is our JV coach, a former player of mine. Just does a tremendous job and a lot of the organizational things for our program, and gets a lot of things done behind the scene. Plus, does a great job with our JVs. Patrick Harnacher works really hard with our freshman group and also helps our JV group. We have Terry Smith back at the varsity level this year. He's been coaching on and off for us for about the past 20 years, and he really gets the kids excited and gets them to play hard, and we really welcome Terry back. On junior high level, we have Chad Rankin, who's been a former player of mine, been coaching. He coached the JV level for a while. Now it's great to have a high school type coach at the junior high level, the 8th grade. David Hookery, who played for us, is coaching our 7th grade. It's what I really like is having our former players involved. They know how we play. They know the Tiger way. Dale Huff has been helping in our junior high program for over 20 years, runs our elementary program, just a very valuable asset. I mean, those guys, I would be nowhere without the help that we've had from our assistants. And talk about other shout outs. I want to say a shout out to Chris Hansel, who's ran our clock for over 20 some years, who finally had to give it up this year because he moved. He did a great job for us. And Terry Wentworth has been our official scorer since longer than I've been the head coach. He started, I think, like when I was still the JV coach, like 2 years before. So Terry's working on like 38 years as our official scorer. So when we talk, some teams talk about having a basketball family. We truly do have a Tiger basketball family that pretty much goes all the way back until 1955, and we're very proud of that, and we want to keep that going.
That family stretches out to the community, and I know you guys always draw well. That community always comes out to support you guys, so you guys don't necessarily need the self-promotion, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. Let that community know why they need to come out and support this basketball team this year.
Well, because we're going to be like, I think, a lot of Tiger basketball teams in the past. I think we're going to play hard. I think we're going to be fun to watch. I think we have a chance to be pretty darn good. We haven't had a losing season in 16 years. We've only had one in the last 25 years, and we're pretty darn optimistic that's going to continue. And we hope if the kids, they are buying in, if they continue to work and improve every day, it's a team that I think can challenge for a league championship. It's a team that can challenge for a district championship. That's way easier said than done, but this team has the talent and potential to do that if they're willing to work at it.
Coach, we're definitely excited for you, and we wish you the best of luck in this season and hope for that continued success over there in Newton Falls. You can, of course, catch some Newton Falls Tigers games. We'll have them on ysnlive.com completely free. Once again, thanks in part to our sponsors. Coach Roy Sembach is ready for the season, as this is the first edition of this year's Coach's Corner with Ty Bartell.
Roy Sembach, what a successful head coach. Obviously, no losing seasons in 16 years. That's something to be proud of, and they're hoping for another great season this year in Newton Falls. Ty said at the top of that interview, he's one of the most widely respected coaches in the area. We've had a lot of coaches say that he's the one that guided them or mentored them throughout their career. So definitely one of the ones that is more highly respected than the rest. Roy Sembach's been doing it for a while, and he goes into another season as the head coach of Newton Falls. They're hoping for a successful year. we're going to preview the night ahead as it is Thursday, December 8th. We have a lot of basketball on the network tonight. It's girls' night. 6:15 p.m. after 2 quarters of JV, Girard travels to Poland. I will be on the call for that one. Also, same time, Liberty will travel to Crestview. Larry Scragg will be on the call there. Back to a normal 7 o'clock start time for the rest of them. Brookfield goes to Campbell Memorial. Noah Ricks will have the call for you that time. Columbiana will be at Wellsville. There will be a broadcast, but it will be video only. Video only at Wellsville. Jefferson goes to Struthers. The school will be handling that one. They run a great broadcast down there in the field house, so make sure to check that one out. LeBray will go to Garrettsville Garfield, another school-run broadcast in Garfield. They'll have a great job there. Lakeview travels to Niles. Ian O'Brien on the call for that one. Niles coming off the win on Monday, so they're trying to gain momentum. They open NE8 play tonight against Lakeview. South Range opens NE8 play tonight on the road against Hubbard. David Williams has the call there, 7 o'clock start time in the Eagles Nest in Hubbard, Ohio. Southern travels to United. This should be a good one as Chris Sigler has the call. Might decide some big waves in the EOAC. It's really too early to say this one will decide the champion of the EOAC, but whoever wins this might have a really firm grip of that driver's seat of the conference going forward. Waterloo will travel to Lowville. Eric Hughes will have the call there, 7 o'clock start time. Waterloo trying to get on track. They've had the first 3 games against really tough opponents in the Lions. They went and they played at Akron, St. Vincent, St. Mary. Tough games. And then, of course, they played Brookfield in the middle of those two. Really beefy schedule for Waterloo. So they're trying to find some traction. They'll try to do it tonight at Lowville. Opening MVAC Scarlet tier play are the Vikings. Bristol will travel to Badger, the Panthers, and the Braves. 7 o'clock start time there. Matt Morrison will have the call for you on Ysn Live. And then Howland will go to Louisville. Bob Burke will be on the call with you there. Should be a good one in Leopards country. Some other games that are happening tonight won't be on the network, but are happening. Should be able to go check them out if you're a supporter. Sebring will go to Western Reserve. East Liverpool will go, and that by the way, that Sebring Western Reserve game going to be a 6:15 start. Just 2 quarters of JV there. East Liverpool will go to Edison. 7 o'clock tip off there. McDonald travels to Springfield. That's a 7 o'clock tip. And Newton Falls travels to Champion. 7 o'clock tip. For those that are looking at the schedule and are wondering, Valley Christian at Lisbon has been canceled. So that is not happening tonight. Do not go to Lisbon. Valley Christian in Lisbon is canceled for the night. So that's your slate of games on a Thursday. Once again, I'll be in Poland for Girard at Poland. Some other games I'm really looking forward to. I think Liberty at Crestview is going to be a really good game. Can Crestview bounce back from their tough loss against Girard earlier in the week? That'll be fun to see because Liberty's coming in. They're starting to get some traction. They saw Demi Watson get 1,000 points. They're starting to kind of like, remember when I said West Branch has to find their identity? Well, obviously Liberty is without Sienna Smith, who was a big part of their identity. They're trying to find their way without her. They look like they might be starting to, but it's going to be a big test against a Crestview team that is young, that is talented, that is coming for them. No seniors on that Rebels team, but they have a lot of leaders, young talent on that Crestview team. Should be a good one. Looking for the rest of them, I'm really interested to see what South Range can do in the NE8. Obviously, they had a tough start to the season so far. Losses to Edgewood and Boardman, and then a cancellation against Ursuline. So they're trying to gain some ground. Obviously, they've been right at the top of the NE8 since its conception, either sharing it with Poland or being right behind Poland. And they'll get their league started tonight against Hubbard, and that's going to be a fun one. Mary Frankus is someone that can really give teams problems for the Eagles. You watch out for her. And then the South Range, can Emma Cunningham step into that leader role and put scoring on her back? She's going to be someone that they look forward to as a senior to really lead that team and be a scoring threat consistently. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be really interesting between South Range and Hubbard. Obviously, we talked about it, that Southern United game. Going to be really good. United girls look like they're locked in. Southern got the win this week as well, so they're starting EOAC play hot. And like I said, this game might just decide who's in the driver's seat for the rest of the conference season. 7 o'clock, Chris Sigler will have that one. Should be a fun one. I'm also just interested to see what Waterloo does in the not in the EOAC, in the MVAC Scarlet tier, because obviously, like I said, tough start to the season. Unfortunately, they're dealing with some injuries just plaguing a lot of teams early. Kara English, not serious from what we've been told, should be back fairly soon. Don't know if she'll be back tonight, but if she is, that's going to be a healthy Waterloo team starting MVAC play against a Lowville team that really wants to prove themselves. We talked to Coach Modelski a couple weeks ago before the start of the season. She feels like if her team stays confident, they can compete with anybody. Last year, they went down to Badger. They got a big upset in the tournament at Badger in overtime. That gave them a lot of confidence. She thinks they have scorers that just have to believe in themselves and go and play not timid basketball. So we'll see if Lowville can do that against the defending MVAC Scarlet Tier champions. All that and more. Go to ysnlive.com/live. Check that out. Want to remind everybody that if you're not watching a game for some reason, but you want to keep up on the scores, our scoreboard is also kept live every night. So head over to ysnlive.com/score. You can find our scoreboard there. And then after the games are done tomorrow morning, what you can do is right under that scores tab on ysnlive.com, find the standings tab, and you can check out where all the teams sit after tonight's action in each of the conferences that our YSN family affiliated schools are in. There's a lot of conferences in there. You can shift through them. AAC, NE8, NAC, the Cuyahoga Valley Conference, of course, both sides of the MVAC, EOAC, and a lot more, Buckeye 8. A lot of conferences there, a lot of teams that aren't in the YSN family yet that we're keeping an eye on now to keep these conference standings constantly updated. Our team doing a really diligent job making sure that they know the different kind of the different protocols of these conferences too, because there are some conferences that, hey, if you play, like in the MVAC, there are 2 tiers. There are a lot of conferences that do that, but there are some conferences that say if you play the other side of that tier, then that still counts as a conference game. It counts towards your conference standings. Some conferences don't. Some conferences have one team that maybe doesn't have a girls basketball program. And so we've been diving deep into research on all these conferences that we're either new to or have 1 or 2 teams in to make sure that we're keeping up with their standings the way that they're going to be tallied. So our team doing a lot of work on that. Make sure to check it out, ysnlive.com/standings. And you can also find it on the drop-down menu on ysnlive.com. Want to thank the coaches that were able to give Ty Bartell the time. Craig Hannon, we'll get to him tomorrow or maybe Monday, as he's I think the last one to get to. Ran out of time today, unfortunately, but we will get to him. He's the last one, and we definitely want to hear from Girard's head coach about their really good prospects, their really good outlook this season. Probably, it might be a good idea to get to play his tomorrow since they play tomorrow. So we'll see what tomorrow has in store. Me and Ty Bartell will be here with you 1 to 2 on Running Point. We want to thank everybody for tuning in today to the show, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. Power Hour will be with you from 3 to 4, and then there's a bunch of basketball on the network tonight. Once again, it's girls' night. Head over to ysnlive.com/live to check out our complete schedule. Those games are free thanks to our wonderful sponsors. Thank you again for